Brianna's hand froze on the crystal pitcher as cruel laughter echoed through the marble foyer. Her fingers trembled, water sloshing dangerously close to the rim as Mrs. Castellano's shrill voice cut through the air like a blade. "Water! You want water?" The woman's lips curled into a sneer, her diamond necklace glittering obscenely in the chandelier light. "The help doesn't drink from our glasses, girl. There's a hose out back if you're that thirsty." The other guests joined in, a symphony of mockery that made Brianna's cheeks burn with humiliation. She'd been on her feet for 14 hours, cleaning their messes, serving their champagne, invisible until this moment of desperate thirst. "Please," she whispered, her throat like sandpaper. You need to remember your place," Mrs. Castellano interrupted, her manicured finger jabbing toward Brianna's chest. The room fell silent, not because of the woman's words, but because of the presence that had materialized behind them. Brianna felt it before she saw him, a shift in the air, a sudden tension that made everyone freeze. The guests' faces drained of color as they turned. Giancarlo Fontana stood in the doorway, his tailored black suit pristine, his expression carved from ice. The tattoo on his neck, an intricate design that disappeared beneath his collar, seemed to pulse with barely contained fury. "Did I hear correctly?" His voice was silk wrapped around steel, each word precisely measured. "You denied my employee water in my home? If you want to discover how this story began and what happened after this moment of reckoning, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment sharing where you're watching from. Each view helps bring more stories like this one to life. Now, let's go back to where it all started. 3 weeks earlier, Brianna Lewis had stood outside the iron gates of the Fontana estate, her resume clutched in sweating palms and her heart hammering against her ribs. The mansion loomed before her like something from another world, all white stone and towering columns, with manicured gardens that probably cost more to maintain than she earned in a year. She couldn't afford to mess this up, not with rent 3 months overdue and her mother's medical bills piling up like accusations on the kitchen counter. The cleaning agency had called it a premium placement, which meant better pay, but also meant working for people who could destroy her with a single phone call. "You here for the maid position?" A security guard eyed her skeptically through the gate's intercom. "Yes, sir. Brianna Lewis. I have an appointment with Mrs. Chen, the head housekeeper." The gate swung open with a mechanical hum that sounded almost ominous. Brianna walked up the long driveway, her second-hand shoes clicking against imported stone, trying not to gawk at the 3 luxury cars parked in front, each one worth more than every possession she'd ever owned combined. Mrs. Chen met her at the service entrance, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "You're early. That's good. Mr. Fontana values punctuality." She handed Brianna a simple black uniform. "Change quickly. There's a luncheon today and we're short-staffed." "Mr. Fontana, he's home?" Brianna asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She'd heard rumors about Giancarlo Fontana, whispers about his family's import business, and the way rival companies seemed to mysteriously fold after crossing him. "He's always home when he wants to be," Mrs. Chen replied cryptically. "Head down, work hard, don't ask questions. Those are the rules for survival here." Survival. The word echoed in Brianna's mind as she changed into the uniform that was slightly too big for her frame. She'd survived worse than working for a wealthy family, hadn't she? She'd survived her father walking out when she was 10, survived putting herself through community college while working 3 jobs, survived watching her mother's diabetes slowly drain their savings. This was just another battle. The main house was a labyrinth of rooms that smelled like expensive perfume and old money. Brianna spent the morning in a blur of polishing silver, arranging flowers, and trying to memorize which fork went where on tables that could seat 20. The other staff members barely acknowledged her. Everyone moved with the silent efficiency of people who knew their invisibility was their greatest asset. Then the guests began to arrive. Brianna had never seen so many diamonds, so much casual wealth displayed like armor. Women in designer dresses that cost more than her car. Men in suits so perfectly tailored they looked like second skins. They spoke in voices accustomed to being obeyed, their laughter sharp and exclusive. She was refilling champagne glasses when she first saw him. Giancarlo Fontana entered the dining room, and the atmosphere shifted instantly. Conversations paused mid-sentence, heads turned. Even the other servers straightened their postures unconsciously. He was younger than she expected, maybe 35, with dark hair swept back from a face that belonged on magazine covers. But it wasn't his devastating looks that made Brianna's breath catch. It was the way he moved, like a predator who knew every person in the room was prey. The tattoo on his neck was visible above his crisp white collar, an artistic design that somehow made him look more dangerous rather than less. His eyes swept the room, cataloguing everything, missing nothing. Then they landed on her. For 3 heartbeats, Brianna forgot how to breathe. His gaze was intense, penetrating, as if he could see through her uniform to every secret she carried. She felt exposed, seen in a way that made her want to simultaneously run and stand perfectly still. "Who's the new girl?" His voice carried across the room, not loud but impossible to ignore. Mrs. Chen appeared at his elbow. "Brianna Lewis, sir. Started this morning. She comes highly recommended." "Does she speak?" A hint of amusement colored his tone. Brianna found her voice. "Yes, sir, I speak." Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or approval. Most of the staff avoided direct eye contact with him, she realized, but she'd looked him straight in the eye and answered with quiet dignity. "Good," he said simply, then turned back to his guests, dismissing her as quickly as he'd noticed her. But Brianna felt his awareness of her throughout the luncheon. Every time she moved through the room, she sensed his attention, brief but absolute, like a spotlight that had marked her for reasons she couldn't fathom. The meal proceeded without incident until Mrs. Castellano, wife of one of Fontana's business associates, snapped her fingers at Brianna. "You, more wine, and try not to spill it this time." Brianna hadn't spilled anything, but she bit back the correction and refilled the woman's glass with steady hands. "Where did you even find this one, Giancarlo?" Mrs. Castellano's voice carried the careless cruelty of someone who'd never faced consequences. "She looks like she wandered in from the street." The table fell silent. Several guests shifted uncomfortably. Brianna kept her expression neutral, even as humiliation burned in her chest. She'd dealt with worse. She could handle this. "Mrs. Castellano." Giancarlo's voice was deceptively mild. "I'd hate for you to insult my staff and force me to reconsider our business arrangement." The woman's face paled. "I didn't mean—" "Of course you did." He took a sip of wine, his movements leisurely, but Brianna saw the danger coiled beneath his calm exterior. "But you'll apologize to Miss Lewis and we'll pretend this moment of poor judgment never happened." "I'm sorry," Mrs. Castellano mumbled, not looking at Brianna. "Look at her when you apologize," Giancarlo said softly. The woman's eyes met Brianna's, filled with resentment and something that looked like fear. "I apologize." Brianna nodded, her throat tight. "Thank you, ma'am." The luncheon continued, but the atmosphere had changed. Brianna moved through the rest of the meal in a daze, hyper-aware of the man at the head of the table, who had just defended her with the casual ease of someone rearranging furniture. When the guests finally left, Brianna helped clean up, her muscles aching and her mind reeling. She was carrying a tray of glasses to the kitchen when she heard footsteps behind her. "Miss Lewis." She turned. Giancarlo stood in the hallway, his jacket removed, his sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms marked with more intricate tattoos. He looked less formal but somehow more dangerous. "Sir, you handled that well." He studied her with those penetrating eyes. "Most people would have cracked." "I'm used to handling difficult situations, sir." "Giancarlo," he corrected. "In private, you can call me Giancarlo." The intimacy of the suggestion made her pulse quicken. "I don't think that's appropriate, sir." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Appropriate. That's an interesting word choice." He stepped closer, and Brianna caught the scent of expensive cologne mixed with something uniquely him. "Mrs. Chen tells me you're working 3 jobs, that you're supporting your mother." How did he know that? How much did he know? "I do what I need to do," she said carefully. "I respect that." He pulled out his phone, typed something, then showed her the screen. "This is what I'm paying you per month. Effective immediately." Brianna stared at the number. It was more than all 3 of her jobs combined. It was enough to catch up on rent, to actually make a dent in her mother's medical bills, to maybe, just maybe, breathe for the first time in years. Why? The question escaped before she could stop it. Because loyalty is worth paying for. Because talent shouldn't be wasted. Because... He paused, his gaze holding hers with an intensity that made her skin tingle. "Because I take care of what's mine." The possessiveness in his tone should have frightened her. Instead, it sent a shiver down her spine that had nothing to do with fear. "I'm not yours," she said quietly, but without malice. "Not yet." The words hung in the air between them, a promise or a threat or perhaps both. "Go home, Brianna, you've earned it today. I'll see you tomorrow." He walked away, leaving her standing in the hallway with a racing heart and the sudden, terrifying realization that her life had just changed in ways she couldn't begin to understand. As she left through the service entrance, she glanced back at the mansion. A light was on in one of the upper windows, and she could swear she saw his silhouette watching her leave. Tomorrow suddenly felt very far away and impossibly close at the same time. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of long hours and careful navigation. Brianna learned the rhythms of the Fontana household when Giancarlo took his morning espresso, 6 a.m. sharp, which rooms he used for business meetings, never to be disturbed, and how the entire estate seemed to hold its breath when he was in a dark mood. She also learned that he noticed everything. "Your shoe is worn through on the left side," he'd commented one morning, not looking up from his newspaper. By that afternoon, a box containing 6 pairs of high-quality work shoes in her exact size appeared in the staff room with her name on it. When she tried to refuse them, Mrs. Chen had shaken her head. "Don't bother. When he decides to take care of something, arguing is pointless. Just say thank you and move on." But it wasn't just the shoes. When he'd overheard her mention her mother's medication costs to another staff member, a private doctor showed up at their apartment the next day, sent by an anonymous benefactor that everyone knew wasn't anonymous at all. "You need to stop," Brianna told him one evening when she found him in the library, surrounded by leather-bound books and the glow of a fireplace. He looked up from the document he was reading, one eyebrow raised. "Stop what?" "The gifts. The help. It's too much. It's not nearly enough." He set down the papers and gave her his full attention, something that always made her feel like she was the only person in the world. "Your mother needs proper care. You need equipment that doesn't fall apart. This is basic human decency, not charity." "It feels like charity," she admitted. "Then consider it an investment." He stood, moving around the desk with that leonine grace he possessed. "You're valuable to my household. Keeping you healthy and focused is good business." "Is that all I am? Business?" The question came out more vulnerable than she'd intended. His expression shifted, something dark and hungry flickering behind his controlled facade. "Do you want the truth, Brianna?" She should say no. She should maintain the professional distance that had kept her safe her entire working life. Instead, she nodded. "No," he said simply. "You're not just business. You haven't been since the moment you looked me in the eye during that luncheon and refused to be diminished." Her breath caught. "Sir, Giancarlo," he corrected, his voice dropping to something intimate and dangerous. "How many times do I have to tell you? This isn't appropriate. Nothing about what I feel for you is appropriate." He stopped a few feet away, maintaining distance but radiating intensity. "But I'm not going to apologize for it. I'm not going to apologize for wanting to protect you, for thinking about you when I should be thinking about business, for lying awake at night imagining—" He cut himself off, jaw clenching. "Imagining what?" Her voice barely worked. "Things I have no right to imagine." His hands flexed at his sides. "You're free to leave whenever you want, Brianna. I won't stop you. I won't make this difficult. But I also won't pretend I don't want you to stay." The confession hung between them, raw and honest. Brianna's heart hammered against her ribs. Every logical part of her brain screamed that this was dangerous, that men like Giancarlo Fontana lived in worlds she couldn't navigate, that this would end in heartbreak. But another part of her, the part that had fought for every scrap of dignity her entire life, recognized something in him. Loneliness, longing, a hunger for genuine connection in a world of transactions. "I should go," she whispered. "Yes," he agreed, "you should." Neither of them moved. The moment stretched, electric and impossible. Then the library door burst open. Marco, one of Giancarlo's senior men, stood in the doorway, his expression grim. "Boss, we have a situation. The Volkov family just hit one of our warehouses." Giancarlo's entire demeanor shifted instantly, from vulnerable to dangerous in the span of a heartbeat. "Casualties? 3 injured. None dead. But they left a message. I'll be right there." He turned back to Brianna, his eyes still soft despite the steel that had entered his posture. "Go home. And Brianna, lock your doors tonight." Fear spiked through her. "What does that mean?" "It means the world I live in just got more dangerous." He reached out, his fingers ghosting near her cheek but not quite touching. "And you're in it now, whether either of us planned for that or not." He left with Marco, and Brianna stood alone in the library, her whole body trembling. She'd known abstractly that Giancarlo was involved in dangerous business, but the reality of it, the sudden violence, the easy talk of casualties, made her previous life seem impossibly naive. She should quit. She should walk away while she still could. Instead, she found herself worrying about him, about whether he'd be safe, about what more dangerous actually meant. Mrs. Chen drove her home that night in one of the estate's cars, something that had never happened before. "There'll be security outside your building for the next few days," the older woman said. "Don't be alarmed." "Security? Why would I need—" "Because Mr. Fontana would never forgive himself if something happened to you." Mrs. Chen pulled up to Brianna's modest apartment building. "He doesn't let many people in, Miss Lewis. The fact that he's let you close enough to worry about? That's not nothing." Brianna lay awake that night, watching unfamiliar shadows cross her ceiling and listening for sounds that didn't belong. Around 3 a.m., her phone buzzed. "Unknown number. Just checking that you made it home safely. G." Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She should ignore it, should maintain boundaries, should protect herself. "Brianna, I'm safe. Are you?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. G. Worried about me. Brianna, maybe. G. I'm fine. The situation is contained. But Brianna? Brianna, yes. G. Thank you for asking. Most people don't. She stared at those words, at the loneliness embedded in them, and felt something in her chest crack open. The next morning, she arrived at the estate to find the staff in hushed, anxious conversation. Giancarlo had been in meetings all night. No one had seen him emerge from his office. Brianna made espresso the way he liked it, strong, no sugar, and carried it upstairs before she could talk herself out of it. His office door was closed, but she knocked anyway. "Enter." He sat behind a massive desk, still in yesterday's clothes, his eyes shadowed with exhaustion but alert. Documents covered every surface. 2 of his men stood guard by the windows. "Gentlemen, give us a moment," he said without taking his eyes off Brianna. They left immediately, closing the door behind them. "You should be downstairs," Giancarlo said, but there was no bite to it. "You should be sleeping." She set the espresso on his desk. "You look terrible." A surprised laugh escaped him. "No one talks to me like that." "Maybe they should." She moved to the windows, looking out at the gardens where sunlight made everything seem peaceful and safe. A beautiful lie. Is it over? The danger? No. His honesty was refreshing and terrifying. "I've made arrangements. The Volkov family won't bother us again, but there are always others. This life doesn't stop, Brianna. It doesn't get safer. It only gets more complicated. Then why do it? Because it's who I am, who I've always been." He stood, moving to stand beside her at the window. "My father built this empire from nothing. I've spent my life protecting it, expanding it. This is my legacy, for better or worse. Does it ever feel lonely?" The question came out softer than she intended. He turned to look at her, his expression raw. Every single day, until recently, her breath caught. "Giancarlo!" An explosion rocked the building. Brianna stumbled. Giancarlo's arms caught her instantly, pulling her against his chest as alarms began wailing throughout the estate. He was already moving, dragging her away from the windows, his body positioned protectively between her and any potential threat. "Stay low." His voice cut through her panic. He pulled out his phone, barking orders in rapid Italian. Within seconds, his men flooded the hallway. "The south gate," someone reported. "Car bomb, 2 casualties. It's the Volkov family. They're sending a message." Giancarlo's expression turned to ice. "Get everyone to the safe room, now." His eyes found Brianna's, especially her. "I don't understand what's happening. I'll explain everything, but right now I need you to trust me." His hands framed her face, his touch gentle despite the chaos erupting around them. "Can you do that, Bella? Can you trust me?" Looking into his eyes, seeing the fierce protectiveness there, the genuine fear for her, Brianna realized she'd already made her choice weeks ago. Maybe even that first day when he'd defended her against Mrs. Castellano. "Yes," she whispered, "I trust you." Something fierce and possessive flared in his expression. Then he was moving again, his hand locked around hers, leading her through hidden corridors she'd never known existed. The safe room was a reinforced bunker beneath the mansion, where the entire household staff huddled in frightened silence. Giancarlo deposited Brianna there, his eyes scanning her face as if memorizing it. "Don't leave this room until I come back for you. Promise me. Where are you going? To end this." The darkness in his voice made her shiver. "So you'll never have to be afraid again." He kissed her forehead, quick, fierce, claiming, and then he was gone, the heavy door sealing shut behind him. Brianna touched her forehead where his lips had been, her heart racing, her world tilted completely off its axis. In the space of minutes, everything had changed. She was no longer just the maid in his household. She was someone he protected, someone he claimed, someone who, God help her, wanted to be claimed by him. Outside, she could hear muffled shouts, the sound of vehicles arriving. Mrs. Chen sat beside her, taking her hand. "He'll come back," the older woman said with surprising certainty. "He always does, especially now that he has something worth coming back to." Brianna closed her eyes and prayed she was right. 4 hours passed before the safe room door opened. Giancarlo stood in the entrance, blood on his shirt collar but otherwise unharmed. His eyes found Brianna immediately, and the relief that flooded his expression was so raw it made her chest ache. "Everyone can return to their quarters," he announced. "The threat has been neutralized." The staff filed out quickly, but Brianna remained seated. When the room emptied except for them, Giancarlo closed the door and leaned against it, suddenly looking exhausted. "You're hurt," she said, standing. "Not my blood." He rubbed his eyes. "The Volkov family won't be a problem anymore. I've made certain of that." She didn't ask how. Some things were better left unknown. "You kissed my forehead," she said instead. His eyes snapped to hers, wary. "I did. I shouldn't have." "Why did you?" "Because I thought I might not get another chance." He pushed off the door, moving toward her with that predatory grace. "Because in that moment, all I could think about was that if something happened to you because of me, because of my world, I'd never forgive myself. Nothing happened to me. You protected me. This time." His jaw clenched. "But there will be other times, Brianna. Other threats. This is what my life looks like. Violence, danger, constant vigilance. You should run from this, from me." "What if I don't want to run?" The words hung between them, loaded with implications neither could take back. "Don't say things you don't mean," he said roughly. "I never do." She stepped closer, her heart pounding, but her resolve steady. "You said you wanted the truth? Here's mine. I'm terrified of this world, of what I'm feeling, of how fast this is happening. But I'm more afraid of walking away and spending the rest of my life wondering what if." His control shattered. In 2 steps, he was in front of her, his hands cupping her face with a gentleness that contradicted the intensity in his eyes. "If we do this, if we cross this line, there's no going back. I don't do casual, Brianna. I don't share. If you're mine, you're mine. Completely." She should be intimidated by the possessiveness in his voice. Instead, heat pooled low in her belly. "And if you're mine?" she challenged softly. Something like joy flashed across his face. "Then I'm the luckiest bastard alive." He kissed her, not the gentle, chaste kiss she might have expected, but something consuming and desperate. His lips claimed hers with a hunger that spoke of weeks of restraint, finally breaking. Brianna melted into him, her hands fisting in his blood-stained shirt, rising on her toes to meet his intensity with her own. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Giancarlo rested his forehead against hers. "Dio," he murmured, "you're going to destroy me." "Good," she whispered back, "because you're already destroying me." He laughed, a real, genuine sound she'd rarely heard from him. "Come on, let's get you out of this bunker. I need to shower, and then we need to talk." Really talk. They emerged into early evening light. The mansion showed signs of the attack, scorch marks near the south gate, broken windows, staff cleaning up debris. But there was also a sense of resolution. Whatever Giancarlo had done, it had worked. He took her to his private quarters, a sprawling suite she'd cleaned but never occupied. The space was masculine and elegant, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the estate. "Wait here," he said, disappearing into the bathroom. Brianna wandered the room, taking in details. Books in Italian and English, a photograph of a woman who must have been his mother, a chess set that looked ancient, evidence of a complex man behind the dangerous exterior. He emerged 20 minutes later in fresh clothes, his hair still damp. Without the blood and stress, he looked younger, almost vulnerable. "Sit with me," he said, settling on the leather couch and patting the space beside him. She sat, acutely aware of their proximity. of the shift in their relationship that couldn't be undone. "I need to tell you things," he began. "Things about my life, my family, what being with me would mean. You deserve to make an informed choice." For the next hour he spoke with brutal honesty about his father's legacy, about the import business that was really a carefully managed criminal empire, about the money laundering, the protection rackets, the delicate balance of power between families, about the violence he'd committed and ordered, about the enemies he'd made. "I've killed people, Brianna," he said without flinching. "Not because I enjoy it, but because in my world hesitation means death. I've made choices that would horrify you. I'm not a good man by any conventional definition." "But you've never hurt anyone innocent," she said quietly. "Everything you've done has been to protect what's yours, or to answer genuine threats. Does that make it better? It makes it real, human." She took his hand, threading their fingers together. "You're not asking me to approve of your past, Giancarlo. You're asking me to accept it, and I do, because I've seen who you are when you think no one's watching. You're kind to the staff. You remembered Mrs. Chen's birthday. You sent that doctor to my mother without even telling me. You're not just what you've had to do to survive in this world. You're also who you choose to be in the moments that don't require violence." His throat worked. "How are you real?" "I could ask you the same thing." She leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. "I've spent my whole life being invisible, being told my best wasn't good enough, fighting for scraps. And then you saw me, really saw me. How could I not fall for that?" His arm came around her, holding her close. "There are conditions. If we do this, if you stay, you need to understand what it means. You'll have security 24/7. You'll need to learn to shoot. You'll be a target, because people will want to use you to get to me. Your life as you know it ends. My life as I knew it ended the day I walked through your gates." She lifted her head to look at him. "But that's not a bad thing. That life was about survival. Maybe this one can be about actually living. With me." His voice held wonder and disbelief in equal measure. "With you." He kissed her again, slower this time, savoring. When he pulled back, his eyes were suspiciously bright. "I want to do this right," he said. "Court you properly, take you to dinner, let you set the pace. You've had enough of your life dictated by necessity. This, us, should be your choice, made freely." "Giancarlo Fontana, are you asking me on a date?" "I'm asking for permission to try to deserve you." He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "It's going to take a lifetime, but I'm willing to put in the work." "One condition," she said, "anything. My mother, she's all I have. I won't abandon her even for this. She's welcome here, in the main house, in one of the guest cottages, whatever makes her comfortable. I'll arrange for round-the-clock nursing care. She'll never want for anything again." Brianna's eyes filled with tears. "Why are you being so good to me?" "Because you let me be good. Because you look at me and see a man instead of a monster. Because—" He paused, his thumb wiping away a tear that escaped. "Because I'm falling in love with you, Brianna Lewis, and I don't know how to do that halfway." "Good," she whispered, "because I don't either." They sat together as evening turned to night, talking about everything and nothing. He told her about growing up as a mob prince, about the pressure and expectations. She told him about her mother's illness, about the fear of never being enough. They shared their scars and found comfort in each other's understanding. Around midnight, Mrs. Chen knocked softly. "Dinner is ready when you are, sir." Giancarlo looked at Brianna. "Hungry?" "Starving." They ate on his private terrace, under strings of lights with the city glittering in the distance. It felt intimate and surreal, her in borrowed clothes, him in casual comfort, the weight of the day slowly lifting. "Tell me something you've always wanted to do but never had the chance," he said over tiramisu. "Travel, see the ocean from somewhere that isn't a postcard." She laughed self-consciously. "It sounds stupid. It sounds beautiful. Where would you want to go first?" "Italy, maybe, since you're always speaking Italian when you think no one's listening." His expression softened. "I could take you to my mother's hometown. It's a small village in Tuscany. She used to tell me stories about it before she died. I'd like that someday." "Soon," he promised. "When things settle, I'll show you the world, Bella. Every place you've ever dreamed of." They talked until the early morning hours, discovering each other's quirks and dreams. Brianna learned he loved old movies and could quote entire scenes from The Godfather, despite hating the comparison. Giancarlo discovered she could draw beautifully, but had given it up because art supplies were a luxury she couldn't afford. "First thing tomorrow, I'm buying you every art supply you could possibly need, he declared. You don't have to. I want to. His eyes were serious. Let me do this, Brianna. Let me give you the things you've denied yourself for so long. Not because you need saving, but because you deserve beauty in your life. How could she argue with that? Eventually, exhaustion claimed them both. Giancarlo insisted on having a driver take her home, even though she protested it was unnecessary. Humor me, he said at the door to his suite. I need to know you're safe. Okay. She kissed him goodnight, a soft, sweet kiss that felt like a promise. As she was leaving, he caught her hand. Brianna? Thank you. For what? For staying. For not running when you saw what I really am. For... His voice caught. For making me feel like I could be more than what I was born into. She squeezed his hand. You already are more. You just needed someone to remind you. The drive home felt like floating. Brianna touched her lips, still feeling his kiss, her heart full of terrifying hope. This was crazy, reckless, everything she'd always avoided. It was also the most alive she'd ever felt. Her phone buzzed as she entered her apartment. Gee, sleep well, beautiful. Tomorrow, I start trying to deserve you. She smiled, typing back. Brianna, you already do. Sweet dreams, Giancarlo. Gee, only if they're about you. Brianna fell asleep with her phone clutched to her chest, dreaming of Tuscan villages and a man whose darkness didn't frighten her because she could see the light he kept hidden underneath. Tomorrow, everything would change again, but tonight, for the first time in years, she went to bed happy. The next 3 weeks were a blur of careful courtship and growing intimacy. Giancarlo was true to his word. He courted her properly, taking her to exclusive restaurants where they had private rooms, sending flowers to her apartment, leaving little notes for her to find during her work. He somehow managed to make her feel both protected and independent, valued and respected. But the fairy tale couldn't last forever. It was a Tuesday afternoon when everything shattered. Brianna was in Giancarlo's office, bringing him lunch as had become their routine, when his phone rang. His expression changed instantly as he looked at the caller ID. I need to take this, he said, his voice tight. Wait outside? She nodded, stepping into the hallway. But the walls were thin, and she couldn't help overhearing fragments. No choice. The deal was arranged years ago. Sofia Castellano. Father insists. Merger. Brianna's blood ran cold. Sofia Castellano, Mrs. Castellano's daughter, the same family who had humiliated her that first day. When Giancarlo emerged 15 minutes later, his face was drawn. What was that about? She tried to keep her voice light. Business. Nothing you need to worry about. But something in his tone felt wrong, evasive. For the first time since they'd started this relationship, he wasn't looking her in the eye. Giancarlo, I have meetings all afternoon. I'll see you at dinner. He kissed her forehead, that gesture that had become theirs, but it felt perfunctory rather than loving. Brianna spent the rest of the day with a growing sense of unease. She tried to dismiss it as paranoia, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted. That evening, she arrived at the usual dinner spot to find Sofia Castellano sitting beside Giancarlo. The young woman was beautiful in the way of people born to wealth, polished, confident, dripping in designer labels. She touched Giancarlo's arm possessively as she laughed at something he said. Brianna stood frozen in the doorway. Giancarlo's eyes found hers, and the guilt in them told her everything she needed to know. Brianna, he stood quickly. This isn't an arranged marriage, Sofia interrupted, her smile sharp. Daddy didn't tell you. Giancarlo and I have been promised to each other since we were children. The wedding is in 3 months. The world tilted. Brianna gripped the doorframe for support. Is this true? Her voice came out steady despite the breaking happening inside her chest. It's complicated, Giancarlo said, moving toward her. That's not an answer. Yes. The word fell between them like a stone. But it doesn't change what we have. It changes everything. Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of Sofia's triumphant smile. You lied to me. I never lied. I just didn't tell me you were engaged? Her laugh was bitter. That's called lying by omission, Giancarlo. That's called making me believe I was someone special, when really I was just a distraction before you married the woman your father picked out. You are special. You're everything. I'm the help, she interrupted, the old humiliation flooding back. I was stupid to forget that, to think someone like me could actually be with someone like you. Don't say that. Don't reduce what we have to... What do we have? She finally let the tears fall. You'll marry her. You'll build your empire. And I'll still be cleaning your house, serving your champagne, invisible again, except when you want a distraction from your perfect arranged life. That's not fair. No, what's not fair is making me fall in love with you when you knew it couldn't go anywhere. The confession burst out of her, raw and painful. What's not fair is letting me believe in something real when you were planning your wedding the whole time. Sophia was watching the scene with barely concealed glee. Giancarlo looked shattered, reaching for Brianna. Don't touch me. She stepped back. Don't ever touch me again. Brianna, please, let me explain. There are things you don't understand about my world, about obligations. Oh, I understand perfectly. I just forgot my place for a while. Thank you for the reminder. She pulled off the delicate bracelet he'd given her the week before and set it on the nearest table. I quit. Effective immediately. You can't quit. Watch me. She turned to leave, then paused, looking back at him one last time. The devastation on his face almost broke her resolve. Almost. I hope you'll be very happy together, Mr. Fontana. You deserve each other. She left before he could respond, practically running through the mansion, ignoring Mrs. Chen's concerned calls. She made it to her car before the sobs overtook her, heaving and raw, the kind that felt like they might never stop. How had she been so stupid? How had she let herself believe in fairy tales? Her phone rang constantly as she drove home, Giancarlo's name flashing again and again. She finally turned it off, but when she arrived at her apartment, he was there, waiting outside her door. Go away, she said, fumbling with her keys. Not until you let me explain. There's nothing to explain. You're getting married. End of story. It's an arrangement. It doesn't mean anything. She whirled on him. It means everything. It means you're willing to marry someone you don't love for business. It means your promises to me. All those beautiful words about deserving each other and building a life were just pretty lies. They weren't lies. His composure cracked. Everything I said to you was real. Everything I feel for you is real. The engagement to Sophia is a business arrangement from before I met you. I've been trying to find a way out of it. Try harder. She unlocked her door, but he caught her hand. Brianna, please. I know I should have told you sooner. I know I handled this wrong, but don't throw us away because I made a mistake. Let me fix this. How? How can you possibly fix this? I don't know yet, but I will. I promise you. I will find a way. His eyes were desperate, pleading. Just give me time. Time for what? To have me as your mistress while you marry someone else? To keep me as your dirty little secret? She pulled her hand free. I deserve better than that, Giancarlo. I deserve someone who chooses me first, who doesn't need to find a way to be with me because there's no obstacle in the way. You're right. You do deserve better, but I'm selfish enough to want you anyway. He cupped her face, his touch gentle despite his intensity. I love you. I'm in love with you. That's not going to change whether I marry Sophia or not. Then don't marry her. It's not that simple. It is that simple. She pushed his hands away. You're just not willing to pay the price, and that tells me everything I need to know about where I rank in your priorities. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, her voice broke. I learned that a long time ago, but I stupidly thought, that maybe with you it could be different. That maybe I'd found someone who saw me as worth fighting for. But you won't fight for me. You'll just try to have it both ways, and I refuse to be a consolation prize. You're not a consolation prize. You're everything. Then prove it. Choose me. Call off the engagement. Tell your father and Sophia and everyone else that you're done playing by their rules. She looked him dead in the eye. Choose me, Giancarlo. Right now. No more time to think about it. No more weighing options. Just choose. The silence stretched between them, heavy with everything unsaid. She watched the war play out on his face. Love versus duty, desire versus obligation. What he wanted versus what he'd been raised to do. When he didn't answer immediately, she had her answer. That's what I thought. She stepped into her apartment. Goodbye, Giancarlo. Brianna, wait. She closed the door in his face and locked it. A moment later, she heard his fist hit the door, not hard enough to break anything, but hard enough to convey his frustration. I'm not giving up on us, he called through the door. I'm not giving up on you. I'll find a way. She slid down to the floor, her back against the door, and let herself fall apart. On the other side, she heard him do the same, the sound of him sitting, his breathing ragged, his presence a tangible thing, even through wood and locks. They stayed like that for over an hour, not speaking, not leaving, just existing in their shared misery. Finally, she heard him stand. "I love you," he said softly, "and I'm going to prove it, whatever it takes." His footsteps retreated down the hallway. Brianna sat alone in the dark, broken and bleeding, and wondering how she'd ever thought she could have a happy ending. Some stories, she realized, were destined to hurt. 2 weeks passed in a fog of misery. Brianna threw herself into finding new work, taking any job she could get to avoid the growing pile of bills. But everything felt hollow without Giancarlo, the man who had become her whole world in such a short time. She'd been stupid to let him in, stupid to believe in something that was always going to end in heartbreak. Her mother noticed immediately. "You're grieving," she said one morning over breakfast. "Tell me about him." So Brianna did. She told her mother everything. About Giancarlo, about their impossible love, about the arranged marriage that had destroyed it all. "And you think he made the wrong choice?" her mother asked quietly. "He didn't make any choice. That's the problem." "No, baby. He made a choice when he let you walk away without fighting harder. But that doesn't mean he won't make a different choice next time." Her mother took her hand. "Men like that, powerful men used to getting everything they want. They don't always know what they have until they lose it. Give him time to realize what he's lost." "What if he doesn't? What if he just marries her and forgets about me? Then he wasn't worth your tears in the first place. But my gut tells me that man isn't going to let you go that easily." Her mother was right. 3 days later, Brianna came home to find her apartment transformed. Every surface held flowers, hundreds of roses in every color. Art supplies covered her kitchen table. Professional-grade pencils, paints, canvases, everything she'd ever mentioned wanting. And on her pillow was a note in Giancarlo's precise handwriting. "I'm sorry for not choosing you immediately, for being a coward, for making you doubt your worth even for a second. You deserve the world, Brianna, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to give it to you, if you'll let me." G. Her phone rang. His name flashed on the screen. This time she answered. "Hello? Thank God." His voice was rough with emotion. "I thought you'd blocked me. I should have. I know, but I'm grateful you didn't." She heard him take a shaky breath. "The engagement is off." Her heart stopped. "What?" "I called it off. Told my father. Told the Castellano family. Told everyone who mattered that I wouldn't marry Sophia." He laughed, slightly manic, slightly relieved. "They're furious. My father threatened to disown me. The Castellanos are demanding compensation. It's a complete disaster. Giancarlo, I don't care. Let them be angry. Let them demand whatever they want. None of it matters compared to losing you." His voice dropped to something intimate and fierce. "You asked me to choose, Brianna. I'm choosing. I choose you. Today, tomorrow, for the rest of my life if you'll have me, only you." Tears streamed down her face. "What about your obligations, your father's expectations, everything you said about your world not being simple?" "I lied to myself about what mattered. I convinced myself that duty came first, that I could have it all if I just figured out the right angle. But you were right, it is that simple. Either I want to be with you or I don't. And I do. More than anything." She heard rustling, as if he was moving. "Where are you?" "I'm coming over. I'm home. I'll be there in 10 minutes. He made it in 7. When she opened the door, he looked like he'd been through hell. Unshaven, exhausted, his eyes red-rimmed. But when he saw her, relief flooded his expression so completely, it took her breath away. "Hi," he said softly. "Hi. Can I come in?" She stepped aside and he entered, taking in the flowers and art supplies with a small smile. "You got my gifts." "It's too much. It's not nearly enough." He turned to face her, and suddenly all the space between them felt impossible to maintain. "I'm sorry, Brianna, for everything, for not being brave enough, for making you feel like you weren't my first choice, when you've been my only choice since the moment I met you. I was so angry at you," she whispered. "You had every right to be. I was a coward. I let my father's expectations and my family's legacy matter more than the woman I love. It took losing you to realize that none of that, the empire, the respect, the power, means anything without you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Brianna's breath caught. "I'm not asking you to marry me," he said quickly, seeing her panic. "Not yet. I know we need time. I know you need to trust me again, but I want you to have this as a promise." He opened the box to reveal a stunning ring, not a diamond, but a deep blue sapphire surrounded by smaller stones. It was my mother's. It's the only thing my father couldn't control, the only piece of my family that still feels pure, and I want you to have it as a symbol of what I'm promising you. What are you promising? That I choose you, that I'll keep choosing you every single day, that I'll fight for us against anyone who tries to tear us apart, including myself. His eyes held hers with burning intensity. That I'll spend the rest of my life earning your trust back and proving that you matter more than any arrangement, any business deal, any expectation that was placed on me before I knew what love actually felt like. You really called off the engagement. I really did. Sophia actually seemed relieved. Turns out she's been seeing someone else for months. The business consequences are still being sorted out, but I don't care. Let them sue me. Let them try to destroy me. As long as I have you, none of it matters. Brianna's walls crumbled completely. She crossed to him, throwing her arms around his neck, and he caught her instantly, holding her like she was precious and irreplaceable. I love you, she whispered against his neck. I tried not to. I tried to protect myself, but I love you so much it terrifies me. I love you too, and I'm going to spend every day showing you that you can trust that. He pulled back enough to look at her, wiping tears from her cheeks. Will you take the ring? Not as an engagement, just as a promise. She nodded, and he slipped it onto her right hand. It fit perfectly, the sapphire catching the light and throwing blue fire. It's beautiful, she breathed. It's you. Rare, precious, impossible to replace. He kissed her then, deep and claiming, pouring every ounce of his love and desperation into it. When they finally broke apart, Brianna rested her forehead against his. What happens now? She asked. Now? I take you to dinner, and then tomorrow, I introduce you properly, not as my employee or my secret, but as the woman I love. We'll face whatever consequences come together. Your father's going to hate me, probably, but he'll get over it when he realizes I'm not changing my mind. Giancarlo smiled, a real unguarded smile that transformed his face. Besides, once he meets you, once he sees what I see, he'll understand. And if he doesn't, then he doesn't. You're more important than his approval, Brianna. You're more important than anything. They ordered takeout and spent the evening on her couch, talking about everything that had happened, about the future they wanted to build. Giancarlo was honest about the challenges ahead, his family's disapproval, the business ramifications of breaking the engagement, the constant danger of his world. But he was also honest about his determination to make it work. I want to do this right, he said. No more secrets, no more holding back. Just us, building something real together. What if I'm not ready for all of this? The spotlight, the danger, your world. Then we'll take it slow. We'll go at your pace. The only thing that matters is that we're together. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. But Brianna, you're stronger than you think. You've already survived in my world. You just didn't realize it. The way you handled that first luncheon, the way you've carried yourself through everything. That's the kind of strength empires are built on. You really believe that? I know it. He kissed her softly. You're not just surviving anymore, Bella. You're thriving. And I get to watch it happen. That night, after Giancarlo left, reluctantly with multiple kisses goodbye, Brianna looked at the sapphire on her finger and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Real, tangible hope that maybe, just maybe, she was allowed to have this. That fairy tales could come true even for girls who'd spent their whole lives invisible. Her phone buzzed. G. Already missing you. Sweet dreams, my love. Brianna. Sweet dreams. And Giancarlo? G. Yes? Brianna. Thank you for choosing me. G. Every single time. Without hesitation. You're it for me, Brianna Lewis. She fell asleep with a smile on her face, the sapphire catching moonlight, and her heart finally blessedly whole. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but they'd face them together, and that made all the difference. 2 years later, Brianna stood in the gardens of the Fontana estate, her estate now, watching the sun set over grounds that had once felt impossible and foreign. She wore a simple white dress, the sapphire ring now accompanied by a wedding band, and cradled her 8-month pregnant belly with one hand. So much had changed. Giancarlo's father had eventually come around, especially after seeing how happy his son was. The business had adapted, finding new alliances and partnerships that didn't require arranged marriages, and Brianna had discovered that she was exactly as strong as Giancarlo had always believed, strong enough to stand beside him, strong enough to become a true partner in every sense. She'd also discovered her own power. The art she'd started creating again had caught the attention of a gallery owner. Her first show was next month, and the proceeds were going to a foundation she'd started, providing scholarships and support for women in situations like her old one. Her mother lived in one of the guest houses now, healthy and happy, with round-the-clock care that had transformed her life. And Brianna? She was happier than she'd ever imagined possible. Strong arms wrapped around her from behind, pulling her back against a solid chest. Giancarlo's hands covered hers on her belly, his chin resting on her shoulder. "There you are," he murmured. "I've been looking for you. Just thinking. About that first day, when Mrs. Castellano made fun of me for asking for water." She felt him tense slightly. "That woman is no longer welcome in our home." "I know, but I'm not upset about it anymore." She turned in his arms, looking up at the man who had changed her entire world. "If that hadn't happened, if you hadn't stood up for me that day, maybe none of this would have happened. Maybe we wouldn't be here. We would have found each other eventually." He kissed her forehead, that gesture that was entirely theirs. "Some things are inevitable." "You really believe that?" "I believe that you were always meant to be mine, and I was always meant to be yours." His hands cupped her face with infinite tenderness. "I believe that every moment of my life before you was just preparation for the moment you walked through my gates, and every moment since has been learning how to deserve you." "You deserve me," she said firmly. "We deserve each other." "Yes." He kissed her, soft, sweet, full of promises kept and promises yet to come. "We do." Their daughter kicked, hard enough that Giancarlo felt it. His face lit up with wonder, the same wonder he showed every time, as if he couldn't quite believe this was his life. "She's going to be strong like her mother," he said, "and protective like her father. God help anyone who tries to hurt her." But his tone was light, teasing. They stood together as darkness fell, wrapped in each other, secure in the knowledge that whatever came next, they would face it together. Brianna thought about the scared, exhausted woman who had stood outside these gates 2 years ago, desperate and convinced she'd never be enough. That woman would barely recognize her now, confident, loved, building a life that felt like magic. But the core of who she was remained the same. She still fought for what mattered. She still believed in dignity and kindness. She'd just learned that she was allowed to want more than survival. She was allowed to want love, joy, a future that didn't require constant sacrifice. And in Giancarlo, she'd found someone who wanted to give her all of that and more. "What are you thinking about now?" he asked, reading her expression. "That I'm happy," she said simply. "Genuinely, completely happy." "Good." He pulled her closer, careful of her belly. "That's all I've ever wanted, to make you happy. Mission accomplished." As they walked back toward the house, their home, hand in hand, Brianna glanced back one more time at the gates where her journey had begun. She'd walked through them invisible and alone. She was leaving the garden visible and loved. And that, she thought, was the best transformation of all. The fairy tale was real, and it was hers. This story has come to its end. If it touched your heart in any way, leave your like and share it with someone who also enjoys emotional stories. New stories are coming soon. Until next time.